7 divine warnings revealed the shocking consequences for those who disregard the chosen ones. The ancient stone church of Wellspring stood like a sentinel, its stained glass glimmering in the moonlight as a chill settled into the air. Inside, a small congregation gathered for candlelit prayer, a thin veil of hope flickering in their hearts. But the atmosphere was heavy, weighed down by doubt and questions that wrapped around the villagers like fog. Thomas, the gentle minister with kind eyes and a humble spirit, felt a sudden rush of warmth coursing through him. It felt like a whisper from God, stirring his very soul. 7 divine warnings echoed in his mind, cascading like a wave of revelation. His heart raced. This prophecy wasn't mere chance. It was a call to awaken a slumbering faith. As he opened his mouth to speak, the flickering candles cast dancing shadows, creating a haunting visual of divine mystery. Miraculous stories swirled around their village, from old legends of faith healers to miraculous interventions that restored hope in the severest of trials. The congregation responded with murmurs of reverence, eyes brightened by the flickering light of faith. Yet a heaviness lingered, like a storm cloud threatening to break over the village square. Just as Thomas began to find his footing, an unthinkable tragedy struck. Clara, the beloved widow whose kindness reached every corner of Wellspring, fell grievously ill. Whispers of despair spread as the doctor, a man of science, delivered news that felt like a lead weight upon their hearts. Gathering strength, Thomas called the villagers to unite in prayer. Hope ignited like kindling, filling the air with anticipation. Every heart beat in rhythm, calling upon heaven for a miracle. They gathered outside, their voices lifting in passionate hymns, echoes of trust twining together, resisting the dark tide of skepticism threatening to engulf them. Yet, even as they prayed, seeds of doubt were sown. "Will our prayers even matter?" one villager whispered, as another scoffed at the very notion of miracles. The faces of once believing hearts twisted into grim lines of uncertainty. But then, on the 3rd day of relentless prayer, Clara opened her eyes. The news spread like wildfire through the town. Some rushed to witness the miracle. Others remained skeptical, clinging to disbelief like a lifeline. With Clara restored, the congregation filled with joy. Yet, could this be anything more than chance? Thomas felt a surge of urgent need in his spirit. This miraculous moment was a beacon meant to guide their wavering faith. But no sooner had elation risen than conflict brewed. The town hall meeting, where voices clashed and hearts split, became the battlefield. The healed and the skeptics stood facing each other, tension thick, threatening to unravel the very fabric of their community. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Amidst this storm, Thomas felt the weight of the prophetic word heavy upon him. What did the 7 warnings mean? Would they heed the divine call or let doubt tear them asunder? As uncertainty loomed like dark clouds on the horizon, Thomas stepped outside, the chilly air wrapping around him. His heart ached for the village, a cry barely whispered into the wind. The path ahead shimmered with promise, yet inscribed with peril. Questions swirled as he sought further revelation. Would faith regain its rightful place in Wellspring, or would skepticism drown out the flickering flame of hope? The flicker of candlelight seemed almost sentient as Thomas stepped out into the cool dusk. Each flame danced like a spirit, anxious yet hopeful, mirroring his own turmoil. The air was thick with unanswered questions, and the tension of the villagers' divide gnawed at him. He could see them gathering in knots, faces flushed with worry, and some still wearing bitterness from the arguments inside. "Faith is not just a feeling," he whispered under his breath. "It's a choice." But could he inspire that choice in them? With each passing moment, the memory of Clara's miraculous recovery ignited a flicker of hope, but doubt threatened to snuff it out. Would the villagers listen? Would they unite under one banner of belief, or let themselves be scattered by skepticism? The stories of divine intervention danced in his mind, and, like the flames inside the church, they compelled him to speak with fervor. Thomas turned to the little gathering, the collective weight of eyes upon him. There stood old Mabel, her gnarled hands clasped tightly beneath her shawl, and young Samuel, barely out of his boyhood, yet marked by deep lines of worry. In the flickering twilight, they were not just villagers, they were souls, each one a vessel of either faith or doubt. "My dear friends," he began, his voice steady, recalling Clara's healing, that sacred moment when the seemingly impossible broke through reality. "We are at a crossroads. Today we witnessed a miracle. Clara walked from the shadow of death back into the warm embrace of life. But this miracle has stirred our hearts in two directions. Some claim it was just luck, others see it as the hand of God reaching out to us." As he spoke, he watched their faces shift, the embers of hope stirring within each individual. Doubts lingered, yet curiosity flickered beneath the surface. "Many don't understand," he continued, "that faith calls us to embrace the unknown, to step boldly into the light, even when shadows threaten to loom." The villagers exchanged glances, each one feeling the tension resonate within them.
"Embrace our true nature," he urged. "We are not just bodies in a village. We are spirits in pursuit of truth." At this, a murmur ran through the crowd, a rustling sound of doubt mixed with budding encouragement. Yet Thomas could feel the hesitation still weighing heavy in the air. He raised his hands, palms upward, and the villagers fell silent. The energy shifted. He was determined to illuminate the path laid before them. What if the 7 warnings are more than just warnings? What if they steer us back to divine truth? He paused, letting the mystery fill the gaps. What if they are not meant to instill fear, but to awaken our hearts? The chosen ones have come to guide us, and ignoring their call may lead us down a road that we may regret. Tension coiled in the air. Would they reject this call? As twilight deepened, whispers filled the air, some in eager agreement, others still clinging to skepticism. The voices rose and fell like the tide, but in that moment Thomas sensed a shift. A warmth enveloped him, an urging he could hardly describe. In that silence he felt a divine promise, the kind that not even doubt could extinguish. But before he could form the next words, a sudden wind gusted through the village, scattering papers and rattling doors. The sky above darkened, and an eerie hush fell over them, as if nature itself paused to listen. Thomas took a deep breath, sensing that something extraordinary was brewing. Let us not wait for certainty. Let us step into faith. What awaits us on the other side of belief? And just as he raised his voice to speak again, the ground beneath them trembled, a whisper of something divine drawing near. In that heartbeat, he wondered, would they see the light? Would their hearts be open enough? What would it reveal about the divine consequences of walking away from faith? The tremor beneath them was not just a quiver of earth, but a call to awaken, a signal from above. Thomas felt the pulse of something greater, pulling at the threads of their hearts. The villagers stood frozen, their breaths held tight, and for a moment every doubt hung in the balance. He could sense their fear thickening the air, yet at the same time sparks of hope ignited in a few eager eyes. It was as if the force around them was revealing their internal struggles. Thomas clenched his fists, ready to pour out the truth they so desperately needed. "Look around you," he said, his voice rising, swirling like the wind that whispered through the trees. "This is our moment to choose. Will we turn away, or will we embrace this divine whisper? Are we to remain shackled by doubt, or shall we rise driven by faith?" An unexpected crack of thunder above seemed to punctuate his words, echoing in the
distance. The sky darkened further, but even there, streaks of silver light began to weave through the clouds, casting rays of brilliant hope upon the village. It was as if the heavens were pouring grace upon them, and in that moment Thomas felt the urgency swell. "Each of us is a part of a greater story," Thomas continued, sensing the collective heartbeat of the villagers. "Every miracle is tied to a promise, and every warning is an invitation to turn toward God. The chosen ones did not come merely to observe our lives. They are here to guide us. Will we allow the lingering darkness of disbelief to extinguish the light they bring?" Murmurs filled the crowd, a mixture of fear and curiosity. Old Mabel stepped forward, her voice quivering yet resolute. "But what if it's too late for us? What if we've already ignored the signs?" The question hung heavily between them, an anchor of doubt threatening to pull at their resolve. Thomas's heart raced. It is never too late. Each day is a new opportunity. Embracing faith means stepping into uncertainty with the assurance that God's hand is always stretched out before us. Samuel, the young boy, gazed up at Thomas with wide eyes, his youthful spirit still untainted by the deep scars of fear. "What if we are unworthy?" he asked innocently, trembling yet courageous. Thomas knelt beside him, bringing their faces level. "We are all unworthy in our own ways, young one, yet that is the beauty of it. The divine does not seek perfection, but open hearts. It is in our humble acceptance of our flaws that we find grace." A wave of soft gasps rippled through the gathering as Thomas spoke. The power of unity shifted ever so slightly, like the first gleam of dawn breaking over the horizon. He could feel their defenses lowering, their walls crumbling just a bit more with each heartbeat. Yet the storm clouds gathered fiercely above as the wind howled around them. The air crackled with energy, a thin veil between their reality and the divine voice urging them to listen. "If you still doubt, remember Clara. A miracle placed before us should not be dismissed." In that moment of stillness, when time lingered, Clara appeared at the edge of the crowd, her youth restored alongside a glow that radiated warmth. The revolution of faith filled the air, mingling with the fragrance of expectation. "Please, let us not forget we still have a choice," she said, her eyes bright and filled with fervor. The murmurs swelled, a chorus of voices readying to risk it all. Thomas raised his arm, calling them forth. Will we heed the warnings? Will we embrace what is yet to come? As the crowd began to nod in unison, the ground still vibrated, a reminder of divine forces at play. Yet, even with the growing chorus, he felt an unease brush against his heart. This moment was not just about rekindling faith. It was the beginning of a greater journey filled with trials and revelations. "Friends," he said softly, "the warnings are only the beginning. What lies ahead could transform us beyond our imaginations. But will we be prepared for the challenge?" As the murmurs of resolution grew louder, a flash of bright light momentarily blinded them, marking the dawn of a new calling. But what would that transformation reveal, and could they truly withstand the tests ahead? The air hummed with anticipation as the light began to fade, revealing a scene that felt both familiar and foreign. The villagers stood enraptured, their faces illuminated not just by the radiance above, but by an awakening light kindling within their souls.
Thomas could sense the shifting atmosphere, the tension of 1,000,000 unspoken fears mingling with newfound courage. Each heartbeat echoed the urgency of their own calling. This moment was not to be squandered. "Look to the heavens," he urged, his voice steady despite the trembling environment. "What do you see? The clouds may portend a storm, but above them lies the assurance of blue skies. We must remember that within every storm there is purpose. We must find the divine message wrapped within the echoes of fear." He turned his gaze upwards, the silver streaks in the sky swirling into shapes and images that beckoned to him. The villagers, too, began to follow his lead, their eyes darting to the glorious visions unfolding before them. "See that?" Thomas said, excitement threading his words. "Those are symbols of hope, emblems of the promises bestowed upon us. Can't you sense it? The heavens themselves are weaving our destinies." Old Mabel, still uncertain, squinted at the spectacle. "Yet, do we know how to heed these warnings? What if we misunderstand?" With a warm smile, Thomas stepped closer to the crowd. "Ah, dear Mabel, that fear, though valid, can lead us astray. It's not about perfection or understanding all at once. It is about taking that first step, about opening our hearts to hear and see. The divine will guide us, will speak to us in languages we can comprehend. Trust the process." Samuel, emboldened by Thomas's words, shouted, "I want to be guided. I want to know." Clara stepped forward, her voice breaking through the whispers. "We all must want it. Together we are stronger. Together we can embrace the unknown." That word, together, hung in the air, resonating powerfully. As though the very fabric of their souls knitted tighter, the villagers began to join hands, uniting as one. Each connection cast away doubt, rippling with faith and trust. Thomas raised his voice, the energy crackling with fervor. "Together we are on this journey, not as isolated beings, but as a family. We are the unbreakable body of faith, destined to rise or fall as one. The challenges we may face are not ours alone. They belong to all of us." Suddenly, a gust of wind swept across the gathering, carrying with it the sound of a distant bell tolling, echoing. The villagers all shuddered, the combined dread of what lay ahead creeping back in. "Do not be afraid," Thomas proclaimed, grounding them once more. "Such sounds are not just a call to remember what we faced, but an invitation to renew our commitments. Every bell tolling is a chance to recalibrate our intentions toward love, compassion, and faith." Tension gave way to a hum of agreement, and the budding bravery blossomed within them. They leaned closer, eyes brightening with the understanding that, while unknown trials loomed ahead, their unity could weather any storm. But as they grasped this profound revelation, the wind shifted once more. Thomas could feel a stirring, a deeper invitation beneath the surface of their hearts, like a drumbeat beckoning them to follow. "What is ahead?" Mabel asked, her voice barely above a whisper, yet heavy with expectancy. Full of hope, yet aware of the daunting path before them, Thomas paused. What does await us could reshape our lives. Are we ready to listen? Are we prepared for a journey that will test the very core of our beings? And at that moment, as the sky dimmed again, they all felt a shift, a calling that promised both trials and truths. What lay beyond that threshold of faith? Would they dare to embrace it? The moment hung suspended in the air, heavy with the weight of unasked questions and unspoken truths. Thomas could see the yearning in his companion's eyes, a mixture of trepidation and anticipation that danced like fireflies in the darkening sky. "Do you feel that?" he asked, the urgency in his tone deepening. "It's the breath of divine winds coaxing us forward. This is our chance." The villagers nodded, some murmuring affirmations, while others squeezed hands tighter as if grounding themselves against their rising fears. As the din of uncertainty quieted, the swirling shapes above began to coalesce, transforming from abstract notions into clearer images. Thomas listened, not just with his heart, but with a deep, reverent expectation that something extraordinary was being communicated. A brilliant light burst forth from the center of the clouds, illuminating the village and their connected hands. Awe struck the crowd. A collective gasp echoed among them. "Look!" Clara exclaimed, pointing at a radiant figure emerging from the glowing light. It was a presence unlike anything they had experienced, a being of pure light, radiant and powerful. The figure appeared not to terrify, but to embolden. It hovered, inviting, embodying the very essence of hope and strength. "People of this land," the figure's voice resonated, soft yet commanding. "You stand at the crossroads. Before you lies a choice, a path fraught with challenges, but also lined with grace. Do you choose faith over fear? Do you seek truth even when it leads into the unknown?" The villagers exchanged glances, their apprehensions momentarily dissipating in the face of such divine urging. "Yes!" Thomas shouted, raising his free hand high. "We choose faith. We will follow wherever you guide us." And with that proclamation, a wave of energy cascaded through the gathered souls. Each heart thumped boldly in rhythm with a newfound understanding. This was no ordinary evening. This was the moment that they were being called to fulfill a purpose greater than themselves. "Remember, dear ones," the voice continued, "the divine often speaks through trials. Do not fear these tests, but see them as opportunities to grow and transform. For each challenge you encounter is a chance to strengthen your spirit and weave deeper connections among yourselves." Old Mabel suddenly gasped, clinging to Esther beside her. "Thomas, what does it mean? What trials await us?" "This is the divine's way of making us aware," Thomas replied. "Through these warnings, we can learn to be wise and vigilant. Perhaps we'll discover our own strength and gifts as we navigate this together." The shimmering figure continued, "Remain united, for those who choose to walk alone will find their paths darkened. You have everything needed within you: love, compassion, and the strength of your unity." The presence flickered slightly, casting elongated shadows across the villagers' faces, illuminating their hope, yet warning against complacency. "Remember the heart behind the call. When you grow weary, lean upon one another." Finally, with a bright flash, the figure began to retreat, the light drifting back into the clouds. But before it disappeared completely, it spoke one last time, a gentle, echoing promise. "I am but a reflection of your faith. Trust that you are not alone. Seek, and you shall find the strength to face what lies ahead." The air around them crackled with a palpable energy, stirring their souls. Thomas felt a bubbling excitement within, mingling with uncertainty about the path they would tread. Would they heed this divine guidance? Could they remain strong when doubts crept in? "Let us not forget this moment," he implored, glancing at each face. "Let it ignite a fire within us. We're called out into the world beyond the storm. We must be brave." With their hands still linked, they stood at the edge of a precipice. The future stretched before them like an uncharted land. The sacred winds had shifted course, urging them on. But what mystical challenges awaited them on the horizon? What transformations would they encounter as they embrace this divine journey? The air around them shimmered in the aftermath of the radiant being's departure. A newfound energy pulsed within the villagers, invigorating their spirits, yet birthing questions that crackled like the remnants of lightning in the stormy skies above. Thomas glanced around, studying their faces, illuminated not just by the fading light, but also by something deeper within, a yearning for purpose, a desire to embrace the challenges ahead. But the road ahead was still obscured, shrouded in a fog of uncertainty. Clara stepped forward, her eyes wide but steady. What if we stumble? What if we falter on this path? Her worry resonated in the hearts of many, a reflection of their shared fears. "Remember," Thomas replied,
The divine's call is not just about the destination, it's about the journey itself. We will have the strength to rise up, for we are not alone. The deep silence that followed bore weight, each soul absorbing the truth wrapped in his words. They could hear the faint, distant whispers of the winds, a gentle reminder of their connection with something far greater than themselves. Suddenly, a tremor beneath their feet caused them to sway. The natural world seemed to shift, almost as if the earth was responding to their renewed intent. Mountains loomed in the distance, their silhouettes casting formidable shadows. "This is a sign," Thomas announced, his heart racing. "Our shared faith will be tested against all that these mountains symbolize: strength, endurance, and the unrelenting spirit of our community." As they gazed at the peaks, an image of the shimmering figure flashed in Thomas's mind, its words echoing like a melody. "Facing trials leads to growth." Old Mabel's voice broke through the moment. "So, we will encounter obstacles along the way then. Trials, as you say?" "Yes," he replied, fire ignited in his heart. "But fear not. We will face these tests together. Each challenge will reveal who we are, and through that, our resilience will bloom like flowers through the cracks of the stone." Every individual stood a bit taller that evening, bolstered by the weight of a shared resolve. They formed a circle, hands clasped tightly, hearts beating as one. An electric current flowed through them, an affirming pulse of collective courage. "Let us pray," Thomas suggested, dropping to one knee. The others followed suit, kneeling in a unified act of surrender and devotion. With heads bowed, a fragile vulnerability swept over them, but it was accompanied by an overwhelming sense of expectation. "Lord," Thomas began, "guide us as we journey into the unknown. Teach us resilience in adversity and strength in unity." A hush fell upon them, profound silence broken only by the wind's soft rustle. Quiet whispers of encouragement arose as each village member began to pray aloud. Heartfelt promises mingled with pleas for wisdom flooded the air, etching their hopes into the very fabric of the evening. Minutes ticked by, each prayer deepening their connection. The light of the dwindling sun began to dim, casting an ethereal glow about them. With each heartfelt request that flowed from lips, the golden rays of hope flickered above, filling the hearts of the villagers anew. But suddenly, a distant rumble echoed across the mountains, a low growl rumbling like the voice of the earth itself. It rumbled louder, almost rotten with warning. "What is that?" Clara gasped, breaking the tranquility and turning her gaze to the shadows creeping on the horizon. Thomas's heart raced. "It's the trials we have spoken of. They have already begun," he whispered, feeling both anxious yet curiously emboldened. In that moment, as they stood on the precipice of transformation, shadows danced on the cliffs, darker than night. What did the earth itself fear? What tests awaited them at the hands of fate? They felt the pull of the winds stronger now, and urging to step forward into the unknown. Would they conquer the challenges that danced before them, or would they allow fear to steal away their faith? A clash of darkness and light seemed imminent, and the true journey was just beginning. The ground trembled again beneath their feet, more violently this time, as if the mountains themselves were awakening. The villagers exchanged worried glances, their hands still clasped in the circle of unity. Through the thickening shadows, Thomas noticed a flicker of light from one of the mountain peaks. It shone down like a beacon, summoning them with its golden glow. "Look!" he exclaimed, pointing toward the light. "That is our first challenge, a guidance into the unknown beyond those dark mountains. We must not be afraid to follow it." Murmurs of trepidation echoed around the group, but the shimmer of hope danced in their eyes. Clara's brows furrowed as she spoke. "What if the light leads us into danger? What if it is a trap?" "Doubt can be as heavy as stone," Thomas replied, his heart steady. "But faith will guide us through darkness. We have each other, and with the divine spirit among us, we will find our way. Remember, the light also reveals the path of truth." Steeling themselves, they began their march toward the towering peaks. Each footstep echoed their commitment. Each stride wove their spirits together more tightly. As they approached the base of the mountains, the ground shook once again, but this time it felt like a heartbeat, a rhythm resonating in their chests, urging them onward. Suddenly, a wind swept through the air, tugging at their clothes. It felt alive, swirling around them, as if the very essence of the earth was conversing with their souls. Thomas raised his arms, a spontaneous gesture of surrender. "We trust in you, Lord. Speak to us through nature, through this moment." The wind flared in response, almost answering him. Leaves rustled and branches creaked, creating a divine symphony that filled their hearts with reverence. Peter, an elder with a voice like thunder, shouted over the chaos, "If we are to face trials, let us be bold in our faith. Let us draw from the well of strength that has been poured into us." His words ignited a ripple of encouragement. "Yes," Clara joined in, "together let us commit to facing whatever may come." More voices rose, fervor building like a fire spreading through a crowd. The circle pulsed with energy, every heart beat in synchrony. Hope infused the atmosphere, pushing out fear and doubts, creating a sacred space that felt both fragile and resilient. The villagers continued their ascent, following the shimmering light that flickered tantalizingly just out of reach. It guided them higher, twisting paths carved by time and force, almost dancing in playful defiance of their hesitation. But as they grew closer, the land transformed. Shadows deepened, and the warm glow shifted, now tinged with an unsettling hue. The whispers of the wind turned sharper, slicing through the air like warnings ringing from the very earth itself. "What do you seek?" a voice echoed, not just around, but within their hearts. It reverberated with authority and questioning. Thomas stopped, startled but resolute. "We seek growth through our trials. We seek unity and clarity." The wind howled in response, a chaotic dance that unleashed branches above like limbs reaching toward the heavens. The earth shook again, but this time it felt different, charged with an energy that was both terrifying and exhilarating. "There will be tests," the voice warned, echoing off the mountains. "You must remain steadfast or fall upon the stones of despair. What shall it be?" Gasps filled the air. This moment pulsated with threat and possibility, dancing upon a razor's edge. Clara turned to Thomas, her eyes bright with resolve. "We cannot let fear define us. We are more than mere villagers. We are chosen. Together we can confront what lies ahead. We cannot turn back now." As she spoke, new determination ignited in their hearts.
They were a community forged by spirit, bound by faith. With one final, collective breath, they pressed on toward the light, their resolve etched into the very fibers of the night. But in the back of Thomas's mind lingered a chilling echo. What tests lay before them? What dark truths would they uncover in pursuit of the divine light? Only time would reveal the answers that awaited them in the unfolding darkness. The villagers pressed forward, their eyes locked onto the shimmering light, which now pulsed like the heartbeat of the mountains themselves. Each step felt both exhilarating and weighty, as if the very ground was a living testimony to their commitment. The air was thick with anticipation and pressed against their chests, each breath a reminder of the unity they shared. As they journeyed higher, the light flickered again, illuminating a path veiled in shadows. An eerie stillness settled over the surrounding trees, their leaves rustling with a sense of foreboding. Thomas glanced back at his companions. Their faces reflected a mixture of courage and uncertainty, each heart battling its own storm of emotion. Clara, always the reflective one, stepped closer to him. "Do you feel it, Thomas?" she whispered, her voice almost lost in the weight of the stillness. "Something is changing." "Yes," he replied, his gaze fixed on the daunting path ahead. "But we carry the light within us too. Remember that." As they ascended, the ground shifted and groaned beneath their steps. It felt as if the mountains were warning them, testing their resolve. Suddenly, the wind howled louder, wrapping around them like a vine, squeezing tightly with every gust. A voice, deep and resonant, broke through the chaos. "Brave seekers, heed my words. Your journey demands sacrifice. Will you give what is necessary to embrace your calling?" Thomas felt. The words resonate deep within him, igniting a fear he had yet to acknowledge. What was required of them? Sacrifice was a heavy term, laden with the weight of loss and change. But the flicker of light remained an unwavering encouragement. "Together we can bear whatever it is," he declared, raising his voice above the roaring wind. "We stand united. Our strength flows from our faith." The villagers responded, a chorus of heartfelt cries filling the air with a renewed sense of courage. "Together!" The wind whipped around them, now rapping with gentle caresses, as if the very mountains approved of their commitment. Thomas felt a warmth surging through the atmosphere, lifting their spirits even higher as they approached a clearing. Within the clearing stood an ancient stone altar draped in vines and illuminated by the golden light spilling from above. It looked both sacred and daunting. The villagers halted, their collective breath captured by the sight. "What does it mean?" Clara asked, stepping forward. "Is this the test we were warned about?" "Perhaps," Thomas mused, "but we must approach it with open hearts. This could be an offering." At that moment, the altar's surface shimmered, revealing symbols etched deep into the stone, ancient signs that seemed to dance in the light. Thomas knelt before it, tracing his fingers along the markings, feeling a pulse of energy flowing through him. "Forgiveness, sacrifice, love," he murmured, recognizing the call to a deeper commitment. "These are at the core of our journey." Clara's eyes widened. What if we are being called to surrender our fears, to let go of everything that hinders our growth? The idea took root in Thomas's heart, stirring a restless longing for something greater. He stood tall, looking around at the faces of his friends. "We must choose," he said, urgency lacing his words, "to embrace the unknown, to trust that this altar will reveal the depth of our calling." As murmurs of agreement filled the space, a tremor ran through the air. The light above intensified, swirling like a divine fire, reflecting their internal turmoil. A gentle breeze carried the weight of hope, whispering promises of guidance through trials. But then an abrupt silence fell. A shadow loomed in the corners of their vision, dark and heavy. Thomas tightened his grip on Clara's hand. "This is not just a moment of faith," he said quietly. "It is the beginning of a decision that will shape our destiny." Eyes shifted toward the shadows forming behind them. The air thickened with the scent of doubt and despair. This was their choice, to trust in the divine light or to turn back into the encroaching darkness. "Will you rise unafraid?" the haunting voice echoed again, challenging them in that moment of stillness. They each stood at a crossroads. Thomas could feel the weight of the world pressing down on them. What will our answer be? Will we hold on to faith despite the shadows pulling us back? As the light began to flicker uncertainly, uncertainty clouded the air. What awaited them one step further? What sacrifices lay ahead as they pursued the divine call? Their hearts pulsed as one. The answers lingered just out of reach. The tension hung in the air like fragile glass, seemingly ready to shatter at the slightest provocation. The vast clearing, with its ancient altar, became a battleground of faith and fear. Thomas took a deep breath, trying to steady his racing heart. Behind him, Clara's grip tightened on his hand, anchoring him in this moment of uncertainty. "Remember the light within us," he murmured, attempting to soothe their collective nerves. "We are not alone." The warmth of their shared purpose flickered like a candle against the looming shadow, inviting reverence amid the turmoil. One by one, the villagers began to step forward, their faces illuminated by hope, a desperate determination sweeping through them. Each heartbeat echoed with the desire to rise above doubt, to trust in the love that had brought them this far. "Let us lay down our fears, our past mistakes," Clara encouraged, her voice rising above the oppressive silence. "Let us give ourselves fully to whatever lies ahead." With renewed courage, the villagers formed a circle around the altar, their hands joining together in solidarity. Thomas watched, a swell of warmth rising in his chest, as the act morphed their uncertainty into strength. They were a tapestry of faith woven together, each thread visible yet inseparable. As each villager offered a word or a whisper of what they wished to leave behind, a shimmering light began to emanate from the altar. Thomas, awed, felt a spirit of forgiveness wash over him, as if the very air sang with cleansing grace. "Love," a voice murmured from the circle. "Faith, purpose." Those words transcended the physical realm. The light danced, twirling and translating the villagers' devotion into something palpable, something divine. Suddenly, the shadows shifted, dark tendrils reaching forth like serpents eager to consume. A chill stole over the group, and doubt echoed back. What if you are wrong? What if this is a path paved with pain? The air thickened, a storm brewing around the villagers, as Thomas felt the weight of their struggle. "But what would we gain if we turned back?" he shouted defiantly, challenged by the encroaching darkness. "We would miss the very answers we seek." Once more the breeze surged, shaking the very leaves above. It felt like a divine wind, urging them onward, challenging them to lean deeper into their faith. A flicker of recognition bloomed in the eyes around him. A fresh resolve appeared to push the doubts aside. "Keep your eyes on the light," Clara's voice rang out, echoing with urgency. "Let love be our guide." In that pivotal moment, the villagers closed their eyes, and Thomas felt their hearts beat as one. With each pulse, the shadows trembled, shrinking back as faith expanded to fill the void. As they offered their fears to the light, the words of sacrifice became a sacred prayer, ascending as a fragrant offering that mingled with the angelic presence. Time seemed suspended, a divine interlude filling the vast spaces between whispers and gasps. The altar responded, the ancient symbols glowing brighter, illuminating their path ahead like starlight piercing through darkness. "Let us step into this unknown," Thomas declared, his voice firm and steady. "We are called to be more than we ever imagined." In an exhilarating wave of newfound clarity, they moved together, crossing the threshold into the warm glow that enveloped them, leaving the darkness behind. But as they stepped closer, a rumble, a warning, echoed through the mountain. Their journey had only just begun, and challenges awaited on the horizon. "What awaits us on this new path?" Thomas asked, feeling the weight of that question linger in the air. "Are we truly prepared for the trials that lie ahead?" The flickering light pulsed in response, hinting at answers yet to be revealed, stirring a sense of anticipation that resonated deep within their souls. The shadows may loom, but they had chosen to walk in faith, united under the light of divine purpose. What awaited them next remained a mystery, but they felt stronger together than ever. The air crackled with anticipation as the villagers stepped forward into the luminous embrace of the light they'd chosen. With each stride, their determination solidified, propelling them over the threshold of uncertainty and toward the promise of faith renewed. Thomas led the way, his heart filled with gratitude and excitement for what lay ahead. As they ventured further into the light, the shadows behind them receded, but the rumbling echoed across the mountains, a constant reminder that trials awaited. Soon they found themselves in a vast, sacred valley, the land shimmering with vibrant colors, each hue more vivid and alive than they had ever seen. The beauty was overwhelming. Thomas could hardly believe that such a place existed. "Look at the wonders around us," Clara exclaimed, her spirit lifted. The villagers gazed in awe, every doubt they had carried beginning to dissolve in the face of such beauty. The air was fragrant, filled with the scent of wildflowers and the sweet promise of possibility. But as they began to explore this enchanting landscape, the ground trembled again, this time with urgency. The walls of the valley began to shift, the shadows twisting back, threatening to re-emerge. Thomas felt an insistent pull, a familiar shadow seeking dominion over their fledgling spirits. "We must remain anchored," he shouted over the cavernous echoes of the valley. "Hold on to each other. Remember our commitment to keep faith at the forefront. We're stronger together." Old Mabel stepped forward, her voice quivering with resolve. "Then let us celebrate our commitment. Let every heart here proclaim the goodness we've experienced." Emboldened by Mabel's call, the villagers joined hands once more, forming a solid chain of unity. Thomas looked around at the faces that had been so fractured by doubt, but were now radiant with shared hope. "Let's lift our praises. Let's sing to the heavens. Let our voices be a tapestry of faith woven together." As they began to sing, the melodies flowed like a river, intertwining notes of love and gratitude that soared high above the valley. The light intensified, wrapping around them, its warmth melting away any lingering fear. The mountains listened, the winds carried their joyous proclamation, and even the shadows cowered in their presence. But the rumble returned, louder now, echoing warnings through the valley. A crack appeared in the earth beneath them, and out of the fissure slithered tendrils of darkness, reaching hungrily toward the united circle. Thomas felt the urgency surge in his veins. "Stand firm," he cried, resolute. "Faith cannot be shattered by shadows. Our unity is our strength." With the chorus of their song rising in intensity, the tendrils began to retract, momentarily halted by the collective power of their voices. Yet Thomas could see that the darkness would not relent easily. He felt called to act. "Those of you who feel the weight of fear, step forward," he urged. One by one, they opened their eyes to share their burdens. The worries that clung like shadows, the doubts that whispered threats against them.
Each villager confessed their fears aloud, feeding them into the air surrounding them. Their voices weaved the stories of struggle and resilience, resonating like a thunderous echo that shook the ground even more fiercely. But with every word spoken, a beam of light erupted, illuminating the twisted darkness that threatened to consume them. "This is the beauty of our journey," Clara exclaimed, her voice blending with the others, shimmering in fervor. "We are breaking the chains that bind us by sharing our struggles. This is what will uplift us." Thomas raised his hands. "Every burden gives birth to the fight. We will not let darkness dictate our path. Speak your truth, and in doing so, illuminate the world around you." The villagers responded, speaking louder and clearer, every revelation pouring out until the air hummed with resolution. As their collective hardships transformed into lights, the shadows retreated further, cowering in fear from their unity and faith. The very ground beneath them shuddered, shaking with the revelation that trials were not merely obstacles, but beautiful opportunities for transformation and testimony. The cracks in the earth began to heal, sealing not just the transformation of the land, but the renewal of their hearts. The valley erupted in a brilliant display of light as gusts of wind swept through, circling around them, celebrating their victory over fear and doubt. Thomas felt a swell of pride for his village as they stood defiantly united, a beacon of hope and unwavering strength amid the chaos. But then Clara spoke up, drawing attention once again. "What comes next? We've conquered this darkness, but are we ready for what lies beyond?" Thomas pondered her question as the energy in the valley began to settle. What lies ahead, my friends, is a journey of ever-deepening understanding. The trials are not simply here to be endured. They are invitations to grow, to discover new dimensions of our faith. As he spoke, the light thickened around them, a promise shimmering in the air. We are the chosen ones, not because we are special, but because we choose faith daily. We must carry this light forward. In that moment, the villagers joined together once more, resolving to continue forward, exploring the lessons soaked in love even amid adversity. They established a chorus of hope, a rallying cry that declared their commitment to one another and the shared journey of belief. As they moved forward through the valley, the harmony of their faith grew louder, echoing beyond the hills, reverberating through the landscape. They embraced the horizon, ready to welcome whatever trials awaited them, while trusting in the divine promises wrapped in each experience. What lay beyond the valley remains unknown, filled with a potent mix of adventure and challenge. But for the first time, as they stepped together into the great expanse before them, they felt an unshakable truth resonate within their hearts. They were not just followers, they were a family forged in spirit, destined to thrive amid the light of divine love. Now, let this be a call to all of you. Subscribe immediately to never miss the next exclusive faith stories that will inspire your heart. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and share this joyous message of hope. Comment your reactions and testimonies about this incredible ending. How has faith transformed your life? And please share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this divine manifestation. This is the moment to show your support, because true servants of God unite in spreading His light. Don't wait even one more second to share.